At 19, Maya Bennett drove away from the only home she knew after one more argument with her stepmother and one more painful silence from the father who should have defended her. She had barely enough money for food, a few bottles of water, and her dog Scout beside her when her old car died on a lonely New Mexico road under brutal desert heat. With nowhere to return to, Maya made a decision everyone in Red Mesa thought was crazy. She paid just $10 for Coyote Ridge, a deserted family ranch with a crumbling cabin, broken fences, and an empty water tank. People told her $10 was still too much for land where she couldn't survive without water. They might have been right. Then Scout began disappearing toward a rocky ravine behind the ranch one afternoon. He returned with something impossible in that bone-dry landscape wet paws. Maya followed him between the rocks until she heard a faint trickling sound, but beside what Scout discovered stood an old stone marker bearing a symbol that Maya had already seen somewhere else. And when she realized what it might mean, the $10 ranch suddenly became part of a family secret nobody had finished explaining. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, where are you listening from, and what time is it there right now? I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are, and if you enjoy emotional mysteries, forgotten places, and second chances, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's go back to the moment Maya's car died in the New Mexico desert. The argument began over a box of dishes Maya had not even wanted. Kendra stood in the kitchen with both hands on the counter while Daniel remained near the sink, staring down as if the right words might appear there. "I'm tired of this," Kendra said. "She's 19. Daniel, if she can't respect the rules of this house, she can live somewhere else." Maya looked at her father. "Are you going to say anything?" Daniel rubbed his forehead. "Maya, nobody wants you to leave." "She literally just told me to." "That's not what I meant," Kendra snapped. "Then what did you mean?" "I mean, you're an adult. You come and go whenever you want. You argue about everything, and you act like this is still only your father's house." Maya waited for Daniel to correct her. He didn't. That silence hurt more than Kendra's words. "Fine," Maya said. "I'll make it easy." She packed before either of them could change the shape of what had happened. Clothes went into 2 duffel bags. Scout's food, leash, and water bowl went into the back seat of her old sedan. She took her identification, work papers, and the folder of family documents Daniel had once told her to keep safe. Scout jumped into the passenger seat and watched her with alert brown eyes. Daniel followed Maya outside. "You don't have to do this tonight." She opened the driver's door. "Then tell me to stay. I'm telling you we can talk when everybody calms down." Maya laughed once, without humor. "That's what you always say, Maya. You wait until everything is over, Dad. Then you want to talk about it." Daniel looked toward the house. That tiny movement answered her. Maya got into the car. "Call me when you know what you actually want to say." She drove away before he could answer. For the first hour, anger made the road easy. Then the houses thinned. The New Mexico landscape opened around her, and anger became something closer to fear. Maya had no destination. Her savings were small. She had enough for gasoline, food, and perhaps a few nights somewhere cheap if nothing went wrong. Something went wrong before sunset. The temperature gauge climbed suddenly. Maya smelled something hot, then saw steam slipping from beneath the hood. No, no, no! She pulled onto the shoulder just as the engine lost power. Silence settled around the car. Red earth and scrub stretched toward distant hills. Maya checked her phone. One weak bar appeared, disappeared, then returned. She stepped outside and immediately felt the heat pressing against her skin. Under the hood, coolant had sprayed across the engine compartment. Whatever had failed, she was not driving farther tonight. Scout panted inside the car. Maya poured water into his bowl, then stopped herself from filling it completely. She counted what remained. 3 bottles, "We ration," she told him. The words frightened her as soon as she said them. She tried calling roadside assistance, but the signal dropped twice, waiting for a bar to return. Maya searched the glove compartment for an old paper map and found the folder she had taken from Daniel's house. She opened it across the steering wheel. Insurance forms, copies of identification, old family records, then a document with a name she barely recognized. Coyote Ridge Ranch. The property was outside Red Mesa, New Mexico. An old transfer agreement remained attached to it. Maya frowned at the amount. $10. $10 for a ranch. Scout looked at her. That sounds either amazing or terrible. She turned the page. Daniel's handwriting ran beside the property description. Still ours if we ever need it. Maya stared at those words. Her father had never mentioned owning a ranch. She entered the address into her phone while the signal lasted. The map loaded slowly. A blue route appeared. Maya expected Coyote Ridge to be hours away. Instead, the estimated location sat almost directly beyond the hills ahead. She zoomed in and checked again. The distance from her broken-down car to the property was only a few miles. By the time Maya finally reached roadside assistance, the sun was lowering behind the distant hills. The tow driver loaded her sedan onto his truck while Maya climbed into the cab with Scout pressed between her boots. The ride to Red Mesa consumed most of the cash she had expected to live on for the next week. At the repair shop, the mechanic took one look beneath the hood and told her he could diagnose the problem in the morning. Maya left the car there and walked to the county office before it closed, carrying her duffel bag, Scout's leash, and the Coyote Ridge papers. A woman behind the records counter studied the transfer agreement through reading glasses. "Samuel Bennett?" she said. "Your grandfather?" "Yes." Maya hoped she sounded more certain than she felt. "And Daniel Bennett is my father." The woman introduced herself as Elena Torres and disappeared into the records room. When she returned, she carried an older file. "The transfer provision is still valid." Maya pointed to the amount. "Even that, $10? What exactly am I buying? Coyote Ridge Ranch, cabin, acreage, existing improvements, such as they are." "Such as they are" doesn't sound encouraging. Elena almost smiled. "It hasn't been occupied in years." Maya thought about motel prices, her broken car, and the money disappearing from her wallet. "What do I have to do?" 20 minutes later, she signed the required papers and slid a $10 bill across the counter. Elena stamped the transfer. "Coyote Ridge is yours." Maya stared at the receipt. She had expected adulthood to involve rent deposits and job applications, not buying an abandoned ranch for less than lunch. "There's something you should understand," Elena added. "The property has been neglected. Don't assume utilities are functioning." "Does it have a roof?" "Last I heard." "Good enough." Elena gave her directions. With the sedan unavailable, Maya paid for another short ride to the ranch. Watching her remaining money shrink again, Coyote Ridge appeared beyond a rusted gate near the base of low, rocky hills. The cabin was small, sun-bleached, and surrounded by broken fencing. Dry grass covered the yard. One porch board sagged badly enough that Maya stepped over it. Scout sniffed every post as though inspecting his new kingdom. "Welcome home," Maya muttered. "Please lower your standards." The front door stuck before opening into a dusty main room. The roof appeared intact. The windows were dirty but mostly unbroken. An old kitchen occupied the rear. There was no electricity. Maya tried the faucet. Nothing happened. Outside, she found a weathered storage tank and an old pump assembly. The tank sounded hollow when she knocked against it. That's not good. No, it isn't. Maya spun around. A pickup had stopped outside the gate. A man in work clothes approached carrying a tool bag. "Luis Ortega," he said.
Saw the tow vehicle drop somebody here. Nobody's lived at Coyote Ridge for a long time. Maya Bennett.
Apparently I live here now. His eyebrows rose. Bennett Samuel was my grandfather. Luis looked toward the cabin with new recognition, but asked no further questions. Maya appreciated that. "Do you know pumps?" she asked. Unfortunately, he examined the equipment while Maya held Scout away from the tools. Luis tried the manual controls, checked several connections, then opened an access panel. Pump's dead, maybe repairable, maybe not, and the tank empty. Maya looked at the 2 unopened water bottles she had left. "There's no water anywhere on the property. I didn't say that. I said nothing is reaching the tank." Luis walked along the side of the cabin, brushing dirt away with his boot. A narrow length of corroded pipe emerged near the foundation before disappearing beneath hard ground. He followed its direction several yards. Old supply line, from where Luis looked toward the rocky land behind the ranch. That's the question. Maya felt a small spark of hope. So there might be a source. Might. But this line hasn't carried anything recently. He stood and wiped his hands. Until you know otherwise, assume you have no usable water here. Maya glanced at Scout, panting beneath the porch shade. I can buy water in town. For tonight, sure. But hauling every gallon gets expensive fast, especially without a working car. Maya folded her arms. I just spent $10 on this place. I'm not leaving after 20 minutes. Luis did not laugh. Then first priority isn't the roof or fence. It's water. He pointed toward the empty tank. Because if there isn't a working water source here, you can't stay. Maya spent her first night at Coyote Ridge sleeping on the cabin floor with Scout beside her and 1 bottle of water within reach. By morning, the heat was already building. She poured a measured amount into Scout's bowl, drank several careful swallows herself, then marked the remaining level on the bottle with a pen. Until we have money, every drop counts. Scout drank and looked at her as if this arrangement was entirely her problem. Maya called the repair shop from the porch. The mechanic confirmed the sedan needed parts he could not get until the following day, and the repair would cost more than she wanted to hear. She stared across the dry ranch after hanging up. Owning land for $10 suddenly seemed less impressive when she could not afford to drive away from it. Luis had left the number of a woman who sometimes drove into Red Mesa, so Maya paid for a ride into town and spent the morning asking about temporary work. A feed store had nothing. A diner wanted someone with more experience. Finally, a small hardware supplier offered her several hours unloading boxes and organizing stock. The pay was modest, but Maya accepted immediately. She used part of it to buy several gallons of drinking water, canned food, and dog food. By the time she returned to Coyote Ridge, carrying water from the gate to the cabin felt like punishment. Scout followed her twice, then wandered toward the back of the property. Stay close, Maya called. He paused, looked at her, and continued toward the rocky slope. She caught him before he reached the ravine. No exploring. I'm not losing you out here. The next morning, Scout tried again. He repeatedly sniffed along the old, corroded supply pipe Luis had found, then moved beyond where it disappeared underground. Maya noticed but assumed he was following rabbits or some other animal scent. She clipped his leash on before leaving for another short shift in town. Water controlled everything now. She calculated how much Scout needed before considering herself. She avoided washing anything unnecessarily. The cabin toilet did not function, and the empty storage tank remained useless. Every gallon had to be purchased, transported, and carried. That afternoon, Luis stopped by to check whether the repair shop had returned her car. Tomorrow, supposedly, Maya showed him the water containers stacked against the wall. This is sustainable if I develop the upper body strength of a professional wrestler. Luis smiled. Or find out where that old pipe went. They followed the visible section behind the cabin until hard-packed soil swallowed it. Luis scraped at the ground but stopped after several feet. Could run toward an old well, catchment tank, spring, without records. Digging randomly is a good way to waste your entire week. Scout pulled against Maya's grip toward the ravine again. Luis noticed, he always do that since yesterday. Maybe something lives back there. Exactly why he's not going alone. After Luis left, Maya spent the hottest hours cleaning one room of the cabin and rationing water. By late afternoon, clouds gave brief shade, and she stepped outside to shake dust from a blanket. Scout was beside the porch. Then he wasn't. Scout. Maya dropped the blanket. The yard was empty. She ran behind the cabin and saw movement near the rocks. Scout he disappeared into the narrow ravine. Fear hit harder than anger. Maya grabbed his leash and followed. The ground became uneven, crowded with scrub and loose stone. Heat radiated from the rock walls. Scout no answer. Maya climbed farther, checking every shadow. She imagined rattlesnakes, injured paws. Scout trapped somewhere without water while she wasted time searching the wrong direction. Scout A bark echoed ahead. Maya scrambled around a bend. Scout trotted toward her, tail moving happily. "You absolute idiot!" She dropped to her knees and grabbed his collar, pressing her forehead against his head. "You don't get to do that!" Scout licked her chin. Maya reached for his front leg to check for cuts. Her hand stopped. His paw was wet. She touched the other one, wet too. Not blood, water. Maya stared at him, then at the bone-dry ground around them. "Where did you get this?" Scout turned and trotted back toward the bend. Maya followed more slowly. Beyond a cluster of scrub, the ravine narrowed into a shaded crack between rocks. Scout pushed through. Maya heard something so faint she initially thought it was wind. Trickling. She moved aside several branches and saw clear water slipping from a fracture in the stone into a shallow natural basin. Scout lowered his head. "Wait." Maya pulled him back. She had no idea whether the water was safe. Still, relief rushed through her so strongly that she laughed. "You found water!" Then she noticed something beside the spring. Half hidden by dirt stood a weathered stone marker deliberately placed upright. A symbol had been carved into its face. 3 short lines beneath a rough circle. Maya brushed dust from the carving. The shape stirred a memory. She had seen that exact symbol before, not in town, not on Daniel's transfer document. Somewhere inside the cabin. Maya kept one hand on Scout's collar as she crouched beside the spring. The water looked clear enough to drink, but Luis's warning echoed in her head. Finding water and having safe water were not the same thing. She filled an empty bottle anyway, careful not to disturb the shallow basin, then studied the carved stone marker again. 3 short lines beneath a rough circle. The symbol bothered her all the way back to the cabin. Scout repeatedly looked behind them, clearly offended that she would not let him return to his discovery. "You already did your part," Maya told him. "Now I have to figure out whether you found salvation or expensive stomach problems." Inside, she searched the kitchen first. Nothing. Then she opened drawers, shelves, and the dusty cabinet beside the back wall. In its bottom compartment lay several rolled papers she had ignored during her first inspection. One cracked slightly when she moved it. Maya carried the bundle to the table and carefully unrolled the largest sheet beneath 2 cans of food to keep it flat. It was a hand-drawn map of Coyote Ridge. The cabin appeared near the center. Fence lines crossed the property. A faded blue line began somewhere behind the rocky slope and ran toward the house. Beside its upper end was the same symbol carved into the marker. There you are. Scout put his paws against the table. No, you're not eating the evidence. Maya photographed the map and called Luis. He arrived that afternoon, shortly after the repair shop finally returned her sedan. The car ran again, but the bill had taken another painful bite from her savings. Luis examined the bottle of spring water, then the map. "Don't drink this yet," he said. "We can get it tested." "I wasn't planning to." He glanced at Scout. "He did. He tried." Maya pointed to the faded blue line. "Could that be the pipe you found?" Luis studied the map, then walked outside. They followed the old pipe from the cabin until it vanished beneath packed earth. Using the map as a guide, they continued toward the ravine at the spring. Luis inspected the rock basin without touching the marker. "This isn't runoff from yesterday's rain," he said. "There wasn't any rain, exactly." He crouched near the water. "Looks like a natural spring, but looking like one isn't enough. And even if the water tests clean, that doesn't automatically mean you have the right to use it." Maya frowned. "It's on my land." "Water can be more complicated than land." That was not what she wanted to hear. Luis examined the ground along the faded route. In several places they found fragments of old pipe beneath loose soil. One section had split completely. Another had been crushed by shifting rock. "So this used to feed the cabin?" Maya asked. "Looks that way. Can we fix it?" Luis stood. "Eventually, but not by connecting one new piece. This line's been abandoned a long time." Maya looked toward the spring. For less than a minute, she had imagined turning a faucet and ending the daily ritual of hauling gallon containers. Instead, she would keep buying water while the ranch's own supply trickled uselessly through rocks behind her. Luis noticed her expression. "Finding the source is still a big deal. My bank account would prefer the part where water comes out of the kitchen." "Your bank account has unrealistic expectations." Maya laughed despite herself. They returned to the cabin and examined the map more carefully. Near the bottom corner, faded initials had been written beside a date. S.B. Maya touched them. "Samuel Bennett. Your grandfather. Has to be." She knew little about Samuel beyond childhood photographs and fragments Daniel occasionally mentioned. Yet Samuel had drawn, or at least marked, a route from the spring to Coyote Ridge. Maya turned the map toward the window, trying to read the smaller notes. One line followed the route toward the rocky boundary. Several words had faded beyond recognition. "Why would Grandpa make this detailed a map and then let everything fall apart?" Luis asked. Maya shook her head. "Maybe he got old. Maybe nobody cared after him." The answer sounded reasonable, but the marker did not. Someone had deliberately set stone beside the spring and carved a matching symbol into it. Before leaving, Luis took the water sample to arrange testing and reminded Maya to keep using purchased water. "No shortcuts." "Yes." "Dad." Luis gave her a look. Maya immediately regretted the word. Her own father had not called since she left. She watched Luis drive away, then carried another gallon from the sedan into the cabin. That evening she cleaned the map gently with a dry cloth and held a flashlight across its surface. Side lighting made faded pencil marks easier to see. Scout slept beneath the table while Maya traced Samuel's blue line from the cabin toward the spring. Halfway along it, she found a small number beside another symbol, then a second. The spring marker was apparently not the only one. At the edge of the map, beside the third symbol, Samuel had written 4 words clearly enough to survive the years. Marker 3, preserve boundary. Maya read the line again.
The map was not simply showing where water had once flowed.
Samuel had been marking something he believed needed to remain protected. The next morning, Maya spread Samuel's map across the cabin table and traced the 3 marker symbols with her finger. The spring marker sat farthest into the rocky ravine. Marker 3 appeared closer to the edge of the old ranch boundary, while the remaining symbol lay between them. Scout watched from beneath the table, apparently ready for another expedition. Luis arrived shortly after 8, carrying 2 shovels, and the news that the spring sample had been submitted for testing. "No drinking it yet," he reminded her. "I bought more water." Maya pointed toward the containers beside the wall. "My savings are becoming a bottled water charity. They started from the spring because its marker gave them a fixed reference point." Following Samuel's faded lines was harder than Maya expected. Decades of erosion had altered the ground, and several fence sections shown on the map no longer existed. Scout ranged ahead on his leash, while Maya compared rock formations with the drawing. After 40 minutes, Luis stopped near a cluster of scrub. "Here," a stone protruded from the soil. Together they cleared dirt from its face until 3 carved lines and a circle appeared. "Marker 2. Maya said. It aligned almost perfectly with the spring and the direction of the buried pipe fragments. They continued toward the 3rd location. The heat intensified, forcing them to stop twice for water. Maya hated drinking from the bottles while knowing a spring flowed nearby, but she followed Luis's warning. Near noon, Scout began sniffing around a low ridge. Maya noticed an unnatural edge beneath loose soil and knelt. Another upright stone emerged. Its carving had weathered badly, but the symbol remained visible. 3, she said. Luis compared the position with the map. Samuel wasn't hiding anything under these. Maya looked at him. "I wasn't planning to dig for gold." "Good, because these look more like reference markers. They identify a route or boundary." That explanation fit the map better than anything mysterious. Samuel had marked the spring, the old water route, and a boundary he wanted preserved. But why that boundary mattered remained unclear. Back at the cabin, Maya photographed each marker and drove into Red Mesa. Elena Torres was working at the Historical Society that afternoon. Maya placed the map and photographs on the desk. Elena studied them carefully. "Samuel made these notes? His initials are on the map." Elena examined the words, Marker 3, Preserve Boundary. Old ranch families marked water routes in all kinds of informal ways. But this map alone doesn't establish any legal right. Maya's hopes sank. "So it means nothing I didn't say that. It means we need records." Elena explained that older water filings could contain descriptions tied to landmarks, property boundaries, or survey references. If Samuel had formally documented use of the spring, there might be something in county archives. And if he didn't, then we don't invent paperwork because we want it to exist. Maya appreciated the direct answer. Elena began searching indexes while Maya waited. Her phone rang. Daniel. She almost ignored it. "Hello, Maya. Where are you?" "You know where I am." A pause. "Kendra told me you bought Coyote Ridge." "For $10. You shouldn't be staying there alone." Maya felt her shoulders tighten. "Interesting time to worry about where I'm staying." "Come home. We'll figure this out. You had that chance." Daniel went quiet. Maya looked at Samuel's map. "Did Grandpa have a spring here?" "A spring behind the ranch. Scout found it." Daniel inhaled sharply. "There was water at Coyote Ridge when I was young. Your grandfather had some kind of system feeding the property." "Did you know where it came from?" "No. By the time I dealt with the place, most of it wasn't working." "Why didn't you tell me? You never asked about Coyote Ridge." Maya almost laughed. "I didn't know it existed." Another silence. "Do you remember stone markers?" she asked. Daniel answered more slowly.
Samuel used to talk about markers. What did he say?
Mostly the same thing whenever we discussed the ranch, which was, Daniel hesitated, never lose the markers. Maya looked at Elena, who had stopped turning pages. Did he tell you why? Not that I remember. Of course not. Maya, I have to go. She ended the call. Elena did not comment on what she had heard. Instead, she pulled a thick index volume closer. Samuel Bennett, she murmured, running a finger down a column of old entries. Then she stopped. There! Maya leaned forward. Beside Samuel's name was a filing date, a parcel reference, and a separate number. What is that? Elena copied it onto a notepad. A cross-reference. To what? Elena closed the index and stood. If this number means what I think it means, there may be an older water filing connected to Coyote Ridge. Elena called Maya the next morning before the heat had fully settled over Coyote Ridge. I found the filing, she said. Maya sat upright on the old cabin floor where she had been sorting receipts. And, come see it. I'd rather not explain a 50-year-old record over the phone. Maya drove into Red Mesa with Samuel's map beside her and Scout stretched across the back seat. Elena had already placed several copied documents on a table at the Historical Society. The oldest carried Samuel Bennett's name and a description of Coyote Ridge. Maya recognized references to the rocky boundary and 3 fixed markers. Another section described water taken from a natural spring for domestic ranch use. So Grandpa had rights to it? Maya asked. The filing documents historical use connected to Coyote Ridge. Elena said carefully, and these descriptions appear consistent with your markers. But we still need to compare the complete record before I tell you exactly what remains valid today. Maya nodded. She had learned not to turn hope into certainty too quickly. Elena placed Samuel's map beside the filing. The locations were not identical in language, but the relationships matched spring route markers, ranch. This is why he cared about those stones. Maya said, it certainly looks relevant. For the first time, the hidden spring felt less accidental. Samuel had documented it because water made Coyote Ridge livable. Maya drove back to the ranch and found Luis waiting beside the empty storage tank. He had received the water test results. Good news, he said. The sample passed the basic safety testing we requested. Maya smiled. So I can stop buying half the grocery store's water aisle? Not until we get it into the tank reliably. They began exposing the old supply line near the cabin. Luis showed Maya how to dig around the pipe without striking it, though much of what they uncovered was already useless. One section crumbled when he lifted it. Another was split lengthwise. By noon, sweat soaked Maya's shirt, and the trench seemed barely longer than when they started. How much to replace enough of this to get water here? She asked. Luis gave her an estimate. Maya stared at him. That's almost exactly what the mechanic left me. We can repair only the worst section first, and if there are more breaks farther up, then we find them. Maya looked toward her sedan. It was running again, but the mechanic had warned her about other work it would need soon. Spending what remained on pipe meant risking another transportation problem. Keeping the money meant continuing to haul water every day. She rubbed dirt from her hands. Buy the pipe. Luis studied her. You sure? No, do it anyway. They worked until late afternoon replacing the worst section near the cabin. Maya made mistakes, including cutting one length too short, but Luis never took the tools away from her. He simply showed her how to measure again. When she struggled with a coupling, he reached over. Want help? I've got it. You've been fighting that fitting for 5 minutes. 4. Luis waited. Maya finally handed him the wrench. He loosened the connection in seconds. Annoying, she muttered. What? You made it look easy. Experience tends to do that.
She took the wrench back. I don't like owing people.
Luis leaned against the trench wall. You're paying for materials, not everything. Then help me sometime when I need it. Maya shook her head. People say things like that, and later there's always a price. Luis's expression remained calm. Help isn't ownership, Maya. She looked at him. The sentence landed harder than he could have known. Kendra's house had taught her that depending on a place could mean someone else deciding whether she deserved to remain there. Since leaving, Maya had treated every favor like a future eviction notice. I'll remember that, she said quietly. That evening, Elena called again. She had found additional administrative references connected to the Coyote Ridge file. There's something strange, she said. Maya immediately tensed. Bad strange, not necessarily. Your father's name appears in an inquiry attached to the property records. Daniel. Yes. He contacted the office years ago asking about Coyote Ridge and the old water filing. Maya looked through the cabin window toward the rocky ravine. Daniel had told her he knew the ranch once had water, but not where it came from. Apparently, he had known enough to investigate the legal record. When Elena gave her the year, Maya remembered that period clearly. She had still been living at home, and Daniel had never once mentioned Coyote Ridge. What exactly did he ask? I need to pull the full request before I answer that. After the call, Maya opened the family folder and found Daniel's handwritten note beside the transfer documents, still ours if we ever need it. She had assumed those words referred only to the land. Now she was no longer sure. Her father had known there was an old water filing attached to Coyote Ridge years before she arrived, and he had never told her. Maya called Daniel before she could talk herself out of it. He answered on the second ring. Maya, Elena found your name in the Coyote Ridge records. Silence followed. Maya stood on the cabin porch, watching Scout nose through the dry grass. You asked about Grandpa's water filling years ago? I did. Then why did you tell me you barely knew anything about the spring? Because I didn't know where it was. That's not the same as knowing nothing. Daniel sighed. No, it isn't. Maya tightened her grip on the phone. What were you trying to do? Restore the ranch. The answer came so quickly that it surprised her. Daniel explained that after Samuel died, Coyote Ridge had deteriorated faster than he expected. The pump stopped working. Sections of the supply line failed. Daniel looked into the old records because Samuel had always insisted the ranch had documented access to water, but the maps Daniel possessed were incomplete. I knew there had been a spring, he said. I knew there was an old filing. I never knew exactly where Samuel's markers were. Maya looked toward the ravine. Scout found the spring in 2 days. Everyone Scout is smarter than I am. She almost smiled, but the anger returned. Why didn't you keep trying? Daniel was quiet. Life changed. That's your answer for everything, Maya. You were going to fix the ranch, then you didn't. Kendra told me to leave. And you said we'd talk later. You always wait until later. Daniel did not defend himself. Maya continued before she lost her nerve. I don't care that you failed to repair some old cabin. I care that when something gets difficult, you disappear without actually leaving. The silence on the line felt heavier than an argument. Finally, Daniel said, You're right. Maya had prepared herself for excuses. His agreement left her with nowhere to direct the next angry sentence. Then why keep the property? She asked. Why preserve the transfer? Because Samuel wanted Coyote Ridge kept in the family. Daniel explained that the $10 amount was not a market price. Samuel had established it as the symbolic transfer amount for the family arrangement tied to the ranch. Daniel maintained the paperwork rather than selling the property. I kept thinking I'd go back, he said. Then another year passed. And another. Yes. Did you ever plan to tell me I thought I would take you there? Maya stared through the open cabin door at the dusty table where Samuel's map rested.
When I was 30, Daniel's voice lowered. I don't have a good answer. A metallic clatter behind the cabin interrupted her.
Luis was working on the repaired section of waterline. I have to go, Maya. Wait, what? I'm glad you found the spring. She closed her eyes. I wish you'd been glad enough about this place to tell me it existed. She ended the call. Behind the cabin, Luis was kneeling beside the trench with water spreading through the dirt around a coupling. Please tell me that's supposed to happen. It is not. Their newly repaired section had developed a leak under pressure testing. Maya crouched beside him. We just fixed that. Then we fix it better. They shut the test flow down and removed the coupling. The seal had shifted. Maya's frustration from the call spilled into the work. She tightened the replacement too aggressively. Easy, Luis warned. I know. You're about to crack it. I said I know. Luis released the wrench and stepped back. Maya immediately regretted her tone. She stared at the fitting. Sorry, your father, how did you know? You looked less angry before the phone call. Maya loosened the connection and started again. He knew about the water filing. He wanted to restore Coyote Ridge years ago. What stopped him?
Apparently life. Luis heard the bitterness. That usually means something specific. They reset the coupling together. This time, Maya followed his instructions instead of fighting the hardware. The pressure held. It was a tiny victory, but watching the joint remain dry steadied her as they covered the trench. Maya told Luis about the $10 transfer. So it was never actually a $10 ranch. Luis said, Legally, that's what I paid. You know what I mean. She did. The price had been a mechanism Samuel created, not evidence that Coyote Ridge was worthless. Daniel had deliberately kept that mechanism alive. After Luis left, Maya sat on the porch with Scout and called Daniel again. One more question. Okay. You said you kept thinking you'd return. Why didn't you? Daniel did not answer immediately. Dad, because I couldn't make myself go back. Why? His next words came quietly. Because the last time I was at Coyote Ridge before everything changed, I was there with your mother. Maya did not answer immediately. The porch boards were warm beneath her bare forearm, and Scout rested against her leg while evening settled over Coyote Ridge. Mom was here, she finally asked. More than once. Daniel said, Before you were born, your mother and I talked about fixing the place up. Samuel was getting older. He wanted someone living here again. Maya looked through the open cabin door. She had spent days treating every damaged board and rusted pipe as evidence of abandonment. Now she tried to picture her parents walking through those same rooms when they were young. Why didn't you ever tell me? After your mother died, talking about plans we made together felt impossible. Daniel paused. Coyote Ridge was one of those plans. He explained that he had returned to the ranch after Samuel died, intending to assess the repairs. Instead, every room reminded him of Maya's mother. He left before finishing the inspection. Later, he requested information about Samuel's water filing, telling himself that paperwork was easier than physically returning. I kept the transfer alive, he said. I thought someday I'd be ready. But you weren't. No. Maya pulled her knees closer, and then you married Kendra, yes, and avoiding things got easier. Daniel was silent long enough that Maya knew the sentence had landed. Probably, he admitted. Maya felt anger, but something else existed beside it now. Her father had not forgotten Coyote Ridge. He had preserved it while refusing to face it. The same man who could not return to a ranch filled with memories had also stood silently while Kendra told Maya to leave. You know what hurts? Maya asked. You loved Mom enough that this place became unbearable, but when I needed you to risk an argument for me, you still chose the easier silence. Daniel's voice broke slightly. I know. Understanding why you do it doesn't make it okay.
I know that too. Maya ended the call without forgiving him, but also without the clean anger she had carried before. The next morning, Luis arrived early. They had repaired enough of the lower line to attempt another flow test. But when Luis opened the temporary connection, only a weak trickle reached the section near the cabin. "That's it?" Maya asked. Luis shut it down. "Something's restricting the line uphill." They followed the route they had been using toward the spring, checking exposed fragments and digging at several likely points. Nothing explained the poor flow. By midday, Maya's shirt was streaked with dust and her patience was gone. "We know where the spring is. We know where the cabin is. How complicated can a pipe between 2 points be?" Luis unfolded Samuel's map on a flat rock. "Very. If we're following the wrong route," Maya crouched beside him. The faded blue line seemed straightforward until Luis aligned it with the 3 marker locations. "Look at marker 3, he said. "We assumed the pipe followed the shortest path after marker 2. Because that's what the line looks like on a hand-drawn map." Maya studied the words Samuel had written, marker 3, preserve boundary. The 3rd marker sat farther sideways than their excavation route. So the pipe bends toward it. Maybe. They returned to marker 3. Scout immediately began sniffing along the base of the ridge. Maya followed him several yards until she noticed a shallow depression hidden beneath scrub. Luis scraped away dirt with his shovel and struck metal. There, exposed an older pipe section running across the slope, nowhere near the route they had been repairing farther downhill. Maya laughed from pure exhaustion. "We've been digging in the wrong place." "Not completely wrong. We repaired real damage." That is an extremely polite way to describe wasting 2 days. They followed the buried line toward the spring, near a narrow channel between rocks. Luis uncovered the obstruction. Part of the old pipe had collapsed beneath accumulated sediment and stone. Replacing it took the rest of the afternoon. Maya carried fittings, cleared dirt, and held the new section steady while Luis connected it. When they finally finished, sunset had turned the rocks orange. "Ready?" Luis asked. Maya nodded. He opened the temporary spring intake. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then air coughed through the lower line. A muddy burst followed. Then water. Maya ran toward the storage tank connection as the sound inside the pipe strengthened. Water spilled through the temporary outlet in a steady stream. Scout barked and jumped backward when it splashed his paws. Maya dropped to her knees beside it. Luis checked the connections while she watched the flow continue. It was not yet a finished household system. The tank still needed cleaning, and the permanent connections needed work. But the spring was feeding Coyote Ridge again. Maya held her hand beneath the stream and felt cold water run between her fingers. For years, the ranch had looked dead because the route to its water had been lost. Samuel's markers had preserved the way back, and for the first time since Maya arrived with a broken car and a few bottles of water, Coyote Ridge had water flowing toward the cabin again. Elena called just after 9 the next morning. "I finished comparing the records," she said. Maya was standing beside the storage tank while Luis checked the temporary connection. "And Samuel's map, the marker descriptions, and the historical filing corresponding. The documented domestic ranch use of the spring is tied to Coyote Ridge in the records we found." Maya closed her eyes. "So I can legally use the water." "According to the records we've established, yes. Keep copies of everything, and don't move those markers." Maya looked toward the ravine. For days, she had imagined Samuel's map might lead to something hidden. In the end, what he protected was more practical than treasure. Without the spring, Coyote Ridge was a dry cabin requiring hauled water. With it, the ranch could live. "Thank you, Elena. Thank your grandfather for keeping unusually careful notes." Maya ended the call and told Luis. He grinned. "Then we should probably make the system worth all that paperwork."
They spent the morning flushing the old line and cleaning the storage tank. Rust-colored water came first, then clearer flow.
Luis replaced another failing connection while Maya cleared debris around the tank. Scout remained nearby, periodically inspecting the water as if expecting credit.
"You started this," Maya told him. "Don't let it go to your head." Near noon, a familiar truck appeared beyond the gate. Maya stopped working. Daniel climbed out alone. He looked older than he had when she left home.
Though only days had passed. For a few seconds, neither moved. Then Daniel looked toward the cabin. "It hasn't changed as much as I expected." "It has if you need water." His eyes shifted toward the repaired line. "You found the whole route Scout found this spring?" "Samuel's map and markers did the rest." Daniel nodded slowly. "Your grandfather would have liked that."
Maya wiped her hands on her jeans.
Luis sensed the tension and quietly took Scout toward the storage tank. Daniel stepped closer. "I'm sorry." "For what?" He seemed surprised. "Maya? No. Say what you're sorry for." Daniel looked toward the ground, then forced himself to meet her eyes. "For letting Kendra make you feel like you didn't belong in your own home."
For standing there instead of stopping it? And for thinking I could fix things later instead of doing what you needed when you needed it? Maya had wanted those words since the driveway. Hearing them did not magically restore anything. "I needed you to choose me while I was standing in front of you," she said, "not preserve a place for me after I left." Daniel's face tightened. "I know."
"Do you?"
"I do now." Maya folded her arms. "You kept Coyote Ridge. You kept the transfer alive. I'm grateful for that. But you don't get to make it mean you were there for me when you weren't. I'm not asking you to, and I'm not coming home." Daniel swallowed. "Okay." The absence of an argument mattered. He did not tell her she was 19 and confused. He did not say Kendra had not meant it. He simply accepted the boundary. Maya glanced toward the storage tank. "You know anything about fences?" Daniel almost smiled. "Samuel made sure I did. South section is falling apart." "I can help." "That isn't forgiveness." "I understand." Maya nodded toward a pair of work gloves near the porch. "Then grab those." They worked for the next 2 hours without trying to solve everything. Daniel reset 2 loose posts while Maya replaced damaged wire. Once he started explaining how Samuel preferred a particular knot, then stopped, as if afraid he was talking too much. "Show me," Maya said. He did. It was a small interaction, almost painfully ordinary, and that was what made it meaningful. They were not repairing 19 years in an afternoon. They were repairing a fence. When they returned to the cabin, Luis had finished the permanent connection from the cleaned storage tank into the existing household line. "Moment of truth," he said. Maya followed him inside. The kitchen faucet looked exactly as useless as it had on her first day. Luis opened the main valve. Pipes shuddered somewhere inside the wall. Air spat from the faucet. Then nothing. Maya's stomach dropped. Another cough came through the line. Brownish water splashed into the sink. Luis let it run while the color cleared. Daniel stood silently near the doorway. Gradually, the stream became steady. Maya reached beneath it. Cool water ran across her fingers. She remembered sitting beside the broken sedan, counting 3 bottles. She remembered hauling gallons from Red Mesa and wondering whether $10 had purchased nothing but another place she could not remain. Samuel had not left her riches. Daniel had not secretly preserved a fortune. Scout had simply found the thing that made everything else possible. Maya filled a glass, watched it settle clear, and looked through the window toward the dry New Mexico hills. Then she turned the faucet off and opened it again.
Water flowed immediately. Maya did not sell Coyote Ridge. The thought crossed her mind once, mostly because selling would have been easier. The cabin needed work. Her savings were nearly gone, and a functioning water line did not repair a roof or guarantee a paycheck. But standing at the kitchen sink with clear water running over her hands, Maya realized she no longer saw the ranch as the desperate place she had bought because she had nowhere else to go. She wanted to stay. Luis helped her make a list on the back of an old hardware receipt water. Roof, septic, fencing, vehicle. In that order, he said. No changing it because you suddenly decide the porch needs to look pretty. The porch is trying to kill people, then step over the bad board. Maya found steadier work in Red Mesa, splitting her time between the hardware supplier and other temporary jobs when extra hours appeared. Every paycheck had somewhere to go before she received it. She bought roofing materials, a few pieces at a time. She paid Luis when she could and traded labor when she could not. When he needed help cleaning equipment and organizing parts, Maya spent an afternoon doing it. Accepting his help became easier once she understood it did not place her beneath him. Help isn't ownership. She remembered those words whenever her instinct told her to refuse everything. Daniel returned the following Saturday. He arrived with fence staples, work gloves, and no speech prepared. South Side? He asked. Maya handed him a post driver. South Side. They worked through the morning. Daniel showed her how Samuel had braced corner posts against the hard New Mexico ground. Maya listened without pretending the lesson repaired their relationship. Daniel did not pretend either. At lunch, they sat in the cabin shade while Scout slept beneath the porch. "How are things at home?" Maya asked. Daniel knew what she meant. Difficult. Kendra angry. Yes, at me, mostly. Maya waited. Daniel rubbed his palms together. "I told her what happened was not acceptable. I should have said it that night. You should have. I know." He looked at Maya. "I'm not asking you to come back. That mattered more than an invitation would have." "Good," Maya said. "Because I'm not." "I know that too." When Daniel left, Maya stood at the gate watching his truck disappear. She had not forgiven every silence. She did not need to. For the first time, her father was accepting that rebuilding their relationship meant meeting her where she stood, instead of asking her to return to where she had been hurt. Elena helped with another part of the rebuilding. She made copies of Samuel's map, the historical water filing, and the descriptions corresponding to the 3 stone markers. Maya stored the originals safely and kept working copies in the cabin. "And the markers stay exactly where they are," Elena reminded her. "Believe me, I'm not touching them." What had first looked like the beginning of some buried treasure mystery now seemed more valuable precisely because it was ordinary. Samuel had protected a practical inheritance knowledge, where the spring emerged, where the old route ran, where the relevant boundaries had been marked. Without that knowledge, Coyote Ridge had become a dry piece of land everyone stopped using. With it, the ranch could function again. Months passed. The changes were small enough that Maya sometimes noticed them only when she remembered her first evening there. The storage tank remained filled through the repaired spring line. The worst section of roof stopped leaking. Luis helped her inspect the septic system and plan repairs she could afford gradually. Daniel returned several Saturdays to work on fencing. Maya's sedan received the remaining repairs the mechanic had warned her about, and eventually she could drive to work without listening nervously to every sound from the engine. Near the cabin, Maya cleared a small patch of hard ground and planted a modest garden. She did not expect miracles from desert soil. The first green shoots still felt like one Scout received his own water trough near the porch. He drank from it with the confidence of someone who believed the entire system existed because of him. Technically, Maya told him, you have a strong argument. One afternoon, Daniel arrived carrying a battered metal toolbox. This was Samuel's. Maya looked at it cautiously. Is there anything mysterious inside wrenches? Disappointing. Daniel smiled. Mostly rusty ones. He set the box beside the cabin rather than presenting it like an inheritance. Then he pointed toward the old outbuilding. That door still dragging badly? Want help? Maya considered the question. Months earlier, she might have said no, simply to prove she could. Yeah. They removed the door, reset one hinge, and replaced rotten wood around the lower frame. Daniel held the boards while Maya drove the screws. They talked about measurements, tools, and whether Scout had stolen one of Daniel's gloves. They did not talk about Kendra. They did not talk about forgiveness, for once. Neither tried to turn ordinary work into something larger. Near sunset, Daniel packed his tools. I'll let you know before I come out again. Maya nodded. He reached his truck before she called after him, Dad! Daniel turned. Come Saturday. She pointed toward the southern pasture. There's still fence down near the ridge. His expression softened, but he did not make the invitation heavier than it was. Saturday. After he left, Maya walked with Scout toward the ravine. The evening air had cooled, and long shadows stretched across the red earth. Scout knew the route now. He trotted ahead until they reached the narrow opening where, months earlier, he had returned with wet paws and changed the direction of Maya's life. The spring continued flowing between the rocks, quiet and unimpressive. Maya crouched beside the first stone marker and ran her fingers lightly across Samuel's weathered symbol. Her grandfather had preserved the markers. Daniel had preserved the transfer. Scout had rediscovered the water. None of them had decided what Maya should do with those things. That choice belonged to her. She stood and followed the repaired route home. From the ridge, Coyote Ridge still looked rough. The fencing remained incomplete. The cabin needed paint. The outbuildings leaned in places Maya preferred not to examine closely. It was not a $10 miracle. It was work. Maya smiled at that thought. When she reached the cabin, she filled a glass from the kitchen faucet and poured fresh water into Scout's bowl. She remembered the broken sedan on the roadside, the 3 bottles she had counted beneath the desert heat, and the frightened 19-year-old who believed depending on anyone meant giving them the power to take everything away. She understood something different now. Independence was not refusing every hand extended toward her. It was having the freedom to decide which hands she trusted. Maya carried her glass onto the porch. The last sunlight burned orange across the New Mexico hills. Somewhere beyond them was the house she had fled. She did not need to return there to prove she still loved her father, and she did not need to forgive Kendra to move forward. Coyote Ridge had not made Maya rich. It had given her something harder to measure. Water, work, history, boundaries, and a place she had chosen for herself. Scout settled beside her. Maya rested one hand against his back and listened to water moving through the pipes beneath the cabin. For years, Coyote Ridge had looked dead because everyone had lost the way to what kept it alive. Maya knew now that being lost was not the same as being gone. Sometimes the way back was still there, waiting to be found.